Hi! Today we are going to have a look at the journey of Victorian ladies' hairstyles. Now, just before the Victorian era and just after the Georgian period in between was the Williamite era. George IV had had no legitimate children, and his only daughter, Princess Charlotte, had died in childbirth. So it was his uncle, William IV, who inherited the throne when he was 64 years old, from 1830 to 37. However, he was married to Adelaide of Saxe-Meiningen, who was extremely influential in fashion, clothing. She now popularised frilled necks, ruffs, Clarence blue garments that was named after her husband, the Duke of Clarence. And like everything else in fashion, of course, everything depended on your wealth and status, and the clothes, the hats, the hair, however wealthy you were, got higher, bigger and more of a statement. The soft ringlets and top knots of the previous Georgian era became large, high and formal, and this was known as the Apollo knot hairstyle. This gorgeous creation dominated hairstyles of the 1830s. But now let's jump on to the Victorian period, 1837 to 1901. Queen Victoria wanted to bring about a more modest, classy and subdued style to fashion. Women's hair symbolised femininity, health and fertility. And there were rules and regulations. For instance, only girls under the age of 16 could wear their hair down. Now only maids and your husband could see you with undressed hair. Clean, neat and dressed hair was virtuous, and undressed hair was only for the likes of actresses and prostitutes. However, not like ladies of wealth who had their hair dressed with curls, ringlets, flowers and feathers. This showed you that you had stuff and you could afford them to achieve this. Ladies actually stopped cutting their hair in later Victorian period of sort of the 1870s to 80s, when huge hairstyles were achieved and appeared as a sign of wealth and womanhood. The seven Sunderland sisters were musicians, showing off their uncut 37 feet of hair, appertaining to real womanhood. And these large fancy hairstyles were achieved and maintained with hot iron curlers. Washing would occur perhaps once a month using a borax and soap, with egg yolk to protect the scalp. And sugar water or egg whites helped to stiffen the hair and hold and set it in place. Powdered starch and bicarb of soda helped to dry without disagreeable odours. So let's have a look at the journey of Victorian hairstyles. Now around the 1840 mark, we have this lovely high bun with the parted hair and what was called Victoria or Apollo loops. Around 1845, parted in the centre with gorgeous ringlets. Around 1850, the bun went to the centre back of the head, and these sort of rolls of hair were tied up and round into the bun. Around 1855, we now see the hair scraped back off the face with a nice bun with a plait around it or some sort of decorative hairpiece. Now around 1860, we still have the hair gathered back, but the decoration was getting lower and lots of ringlets at the back. In 1865, we see the hair going back but up, getting bigger, and lots of big hair pieces coming down. 1870s, things are starting to get even more full and large. We now see lots of longer ringlets. And later in the 1870s, huge hair was the fashion, piled up with massive great pads, curls, plaits and hairpieces. And here we have a beautiful long hairstyle for Princess Alex, and this sort of frizzy box type fringe became all the fashion. Look how large and boxy this fringe became. So she was putting her hair up, getting rid of all this mass and putting in very classy, dainty hair plaits. 1890s saw the era of the Gibson girl, and we start to now get rid of all this big boxy frizzy fringe, and a more natural lower set hairstyle was nice. Around 1895 we see what was called the pompadour hairstyle, and that was sort of very loose and large in a swathe. Still at around 1900, the pompadour is still quite nice, loose and big, natural looking, with a bun tucked on the top. 1900 saw the Edwardian period starting, and the hairstyle becomes very natural indeed, with lower set buns at the back. 1905, very natural wavy loose hair. Headbands are starting to come in. 1910, we're starting to get towards the 20s now, with these beautiful decorative headbands making a statement. Do hope you've enjoyed another historical fashion story with the journey of Victorian hairstyles. If you have, do join me again for the next one. See you very soon. Bye.